like to start off with a question. When you think about it, what is the most important asset that your company has? It's not a product that you have, because products die and products change and they evolve. It's not real estate, although that can give you some good leverage, but however, real estate goes down as well. It's not your employees, because employees leave and employees go. Now, if I had employees like Zoho, I'd be in good shape, but it's not always your employees. What it is it's your database. People's databases are of great value. Companies are bought because of databases. If you want to take your company public, you must have a database. A database is your most valuable asset. If you lost your database today and you wanted to contact your customers and prospects, you need a way to get in touch with them. If you're moving to a new location, you need a way to get in touch with them. Your database is your most important asset. And as that, you need to treat it with a lot of care. You need to be sure that you're not got garbage in, garbage out. So I wanted to talk today about the 6 keys to what I think is a successful implementation of CRM. I've been doing this a long time. I joked with one of the product team guys the last time that I've been doing this longer than he's been alive, and he goes, "Oh, that can't be." So I told him what year I started in business, and he goes, "I was born a year later." So I've been doing it a long time, and so I've kind of developed a lot of thoughts about what makes a good CRM implementation. I'll probably come at it from a lot more basic view than what you just got from Tejas if you were just still in here. But I think probably I like to come at it from the concept of the sales rep. Usually when I'm doing a CRM implementation, it's a management team, and they're very familiar with the stick part. They want reports. They want to do all kinds of things to make sure that their sales team is entering stuff. And so I always try and represent the sales team and represent what would make it easy, what is the carrot, because I want them to be actively engaged in the CRM system. Now, there's going to be a stick, and that's because some people only respond to a stick, so you're going to have that. But I really want to focus on the carrot part of the equation and talk about that today. So you'll start with a vision. You'll start with a vision. That's actually, a lot of people don't want to start with a vision. They want to say, well, but we need to get it in place. Let's just get started, and then we can make changes. I think that's a really, really bad idea. People do not like change, and they don't want to change twice for sure. So if you have some thoughts about where you want to go, take some time and make sure you're putting it in the implementation at the very beginning. If you're going to add fields, if you're going to have workflow, get it in, spend some time and think about it and get it in at the very beginning so that when you roll it out to your team, it's already there and you're not going to have to train them twice on how to do something. So you kind of think about, what will success look like? Really have a really good vision of it. I have some clients that say success will be when everybody can be doing their entire workload on their iPad in the field. Success sometimes is I want to be able to have reports. Success is sometimes I want 100% engagement by the employees. That's probably stretching it, but you can even go there if you need to. So I just kind of say, what would make this a wildly successful? Because also when people think about going to a new CRM, they're usually coming from something else. So you have a frame of reference of what a CRM will do. And Zoho, in particular, has so many capabilities. And so I try to get people to think, well, forget about how you did it before. In an ideal world, what would you like for it to do? I mean, I can tell you that, well, okay, we went too far there. But maybe the Zoho will automatically do exactly what you've always wanted and never thought to ask. So kind of think about, what would it look like? Make a strategy. Somebody asked the other day about how do you create a strategy if you don't have one? And you ask these kinds of questions. How are we following up with leads? Well, maybe we're not right now, okay? So then think about, in an ideal world, how would I follow up with leads? Could I give my employees or my sales team templates that would kind of follow up? Or do I want them to always call back in 3 days? Just start with something. You don't have to have it doesn't have to be perfect. It's easy to change. How are we following up with quotes and proposals? Certainly, if your team spends time developing a quote and proposal, which is it's probably my least favorite part of the job because it takes a long time to develop a quote and a proposal. If you spend that time, figure out how you should follow up. Don't just let those quotes and proposals go out into oblivion and you never follow up on them. How should you stay in touch with customers? Are you going to use campaigns? How are you going to stay in touch with inactive customers? It's not the one and done. After someone bought something, in a year after they've made a purchase, are you in touch with them? How are you working with them? I think all of those are real important things for you to consider. And then, of course, I'm still thinking of strategy here now. I haven't gotten to implementation at all. What kind of reports will you want out of the system? You can't get reports out if you don't have the fields in. So you need to start thinking, even though you won't be able to generate reports for a short period of time because there's no data, at least think about what you want. And if you have those, do you want to make some of them required fields? Now, I'm not a big fan of having very many required fields, but if you've got something that's really, really important for you to track, let's say lead type or industry type or something like that, then you want to make it a required field, but make sure you've got all of the fields that you need in order to generate the reports that you're going to want out of the system at some point. I think, too, plan for the long term. And when I say that, hopefully you've gotten a really good view of some of the capabilities that Zoho has. There are a lot of products that they haven't even discussed. I have probably, I would say, the three most popular other apps that customers will roll out will be campaigns. That's always probably one of the first. But projects and support. So if you know you're going to do that, particularly projects and support, then have that in the back of your mind. Maybe you don't want to roll it out to begin with, but don't put it into CRM knowing that you're going to change it later when you add another app. Do you see what I'm saying? That's more of a change and then make them change again. So think about what you want to do long term. How do you really want Zoho to run your business? Don't put in too many fields. If you've never used a CRM before, you need to keep the fields very short, not that many, because it's overwhelming for people to use. And just kind of keep it like straight line from A to B to C, because in the strategy part, this is the most important thing you want to consider. I need to have end user adoption. And if you don't know already, that is probably the largest reason for failure of CRMs, is that the end users did not adopt it or didn't put things in. They didn't use the system. So keep that in mind. You really want to go with the end user adoption and think carrot, and I know you're going to think stick any rate, because if you're the management team, you're always going to be thinking that. But try and think about the carrot, because that's ultimately you want to make sure that you're engaging in the end user adoption. And the way I would do that is just kind of think about what would be all the ways that we could make it easier for the sales team or the production team or whoever is using your CRM. The second step would be user-friendly design. I think it's real easy to overlook this one, and it's probably one of the easiest to correct. It's one of the first things that I will do for all CRM implementations when we start is I just go through and change all of the default designs. It might be something like, I think you should focus on views. A views is how the fields are laid out on the page, and also how they're laid out in list views. How they're laid out on the page should be very, very consistent. The more consistent you are, the better. If you focus on, put things in function, like put all of the phone fields at the left, and maybe the title fields and industry and anything about the company on the right. Group things together, put them in an order, make sure it's consistent. When I talk about consistent, I wanted to show you, when you create a lead, this is an example of leads and contacts. This is leads and contacts. When you have the leads and contacts, make sure that they're in the same order, so that when you convert a lead, because people are already used to seeing the email and the phone number right here, when you convert it to a contact, don't put those fields in a different place. It's not that hard to keep consistent. A lot of times when I'm doing the design work, I'll open up 2 tabs of CRM, and I'll display the lead tab, and then in the other tab, I'll go ahead and lay out the contact fields so they're in exactly the same order. Now, it's never going to be exact, because notice that here I've got a couple of extra fields that I didn't have here. But still, keep them in a somewhat of the same order, and it'll be a lot easier. Your eye will just automatically start to look for things in the exact same place all the time. This is another thing. Add fields to the default global list views. You see this? This is the contact field. What's missing there? Accounts. It's very easy to do, and I'll demo this in a few minutes. I just kind of want to get a high level, but I really want you to understand how to build views. Put account name, and also if you're in a multi-user environment, put the who is the owner at the end. But that is a much better view, and I understand a lot more just because I added 2 fields to the default view. This is just the all contacts view. It's the same for activities. This is probably my least favorite view as a default in Zoho, because here are my subject. I don't know who it's with, and I don't know who's responsible for it. So when a lot of sales teams look at this, they're like, doesn't help me at all. So they'll blow away, they don't even fool with tasks or events because it's too confusing. Besides that, you're looking at all activities. You're looking at everybody in the company. You're looking at things that have closed, things that are open. It's not helpful for me. So the first thing I might do would be add contact name related to, who's it for, do something like that. Those are very, very easy things to add. But before I show you, I just want to talk about one other thing too. When I look at views that people have done, they're not always consistent. And I really like for that very first column to always be the thing that you click on. In this case, somebody put the contact owner at the front. So whenever I create views, no matter what view it is, the first column is always what you click on, and the last column is always the person who owns it. If you're consistent with it, whenever you build views, it's going to be a lot easier for your teams to instantly recognize things in the database. So if this is create a custom view. You know that you can do that. I'm going to see if I can switch. Basically, you can have any kind of custom view, and you can favorite your views, because sometimes you can get to too many views. I'm going to switch over. I have a demo database we can kind of play with. That kind of goes over very similarly to what we talked about. And I want to go kind of slow, because actually I think that creating views is the most important skill that you can develop at the start of an implementation. And it's the most important skill you can teach your people to use. Notice that there is a favorites. I'm going to go ahead and create a favorite very quickly by clicking on the drop down here. And if I just point to that little star and click on it, it has a little gold star in the middle, and it'll automatically pop up to the top and create a favorites area. If you get really good at creating a lot of views, trust me, you're going to find it helpful to be able to favorite some of your views. And the favorites are unique to each user in the company. So each user can pick their own favorites, and it's not a problem. So let's talk about some views that are kind of missing. It would be easy. For instance, when I look at potentials, that's probably one. You've got all potentials. What I really want, if you look at that list, what do I want? I want all open potentials. It's good to have closing next month, but I just want all open ones. Or maybe I want all won potentials, or maybe all lost potentials. Those are really, really easy to create. We're going to create one, and then you'll figure out how to create the others. So I'm just going to point to one, click Create, and decide what I would like to do. So I'm just going to say, give it a name. And pick some fields. I like potential. Remember, I like potential owner always at the end. Potential name is what you're going to click on, so that's first. But I need to know who it's with. So I'm going to pick account name. Move it up. Sometimes you will see another field called related. There we go. I've got contact name, so I'm going to put that over there as well. And let's say that's all I want. So those are the fields that I'm going to select. The next thing is the criteria. I'm missing an area. Oh, because I'm in a free version. This is a demo account. The second area, and that's there's a lot of things that you miss if you're not in the paid version. But in the paid version, you get to select who can see this. And I always encourage, I've got a screenshot of that. I always encourage people to, if you think other people would like it, then make it available for all users. But if it's just yours, just keep it to yourself, because otherwise the list of views that you can see gets so long, it's too long for everybody to scroll to. So in this case, I'm just going to specify the criteria and say the criteria is stage. And I'm kind of used to saying contains instead of is, because I find that a lot of people change the stage names. Sometimes it's closed-1, sometimes it's whatever. I just say open. Oh, you know what? There is no such thing as an open potential, is there? So I'm just going to say doesn't contain closed. So that should work. Click Save. So now I have a list of open potentials. But now maybe what I want to do, if I have a lot of sales teams, I need to make an open potentials view for each of my sales teams, because they don't want to see everybody else's. Maybe they do, but mostly I need them to focus on their own stuff and not be focusing on what other salespeople are doing. You need to close your own deals. So I can see that Bill is one of the salespeople, and You Are Powerful is the other one. So all I'm going to do is, notice there's a clone view. You can make it very easily, so I can just click on clone. It does exactly the same thing, exactly the same view. I'm just going to add to the end and say Bill. And I'm going to add a criteria by clicking on the plus at the end of the criteria and say, and potential owner is Bill. Easy enough? And I'll click Save. So you can, once you've got one, it's very easy to just clone them and just change the name of somebody. You can make them really, really fast. But it's real important for them to understand. So what that looked like very quickly, there was the fields. You can see this is what that one dialog box would have had, is who can see this? All users, show this custom view only to me, or specific ones. If you're the admin and you're making these views for other team members, you would click the third option, and then you can select by user. So, which is a nice thing. If you're going to do that, it's great for the admin to handle that for the people. So the other view that we did, I created one called All Open, and I might want to create one called Past Due. That's always a handy thing to have, because people will have these expected close dates, and I see expected close dates sometimes in 2013. I'm like, you need to clean this up a little bit. So I'll create a view called It's Not Closed, and the closing date, and there are some date field functions there that you can use, and it's Tell Yesterday. So it's going to show me all opportunities or potentials that are past due closing date. Now, either someone can go in and update the closing date, or they can go in and update the stage. The activities, this is another area that I thought would be interesting for you to see, and I want you to understand. Let's look at how to create activity views, because I think that's the next area of interest. I want to do 2 activity views that I think are really handy. One is, I want to know, what do I have to do today? What do I have to do today? I want to know not only events, but I want tasks, and I want them in the same view. I don't want to have to go to multiple views to see it. And then I want to have a view of what are my past due activities. What am I behind on? So again, they're pretty easy. If I'm going to point and say Create View, I'm just going to create a general one for right now, past due. So these are fine. This is the subject, the type, the due date. I don't have who it's for, so I just want to go up to the top. The activity owner right there. And notice I don't know who it's for. If I look at it, I'm like, okay, who is that for? So notice I want to show you another option that's not always clear. I've got contact name, which is good because usually you're scheduling activities with somebody. But here is this field name right there. Related to is going to change based on the module that it's coming from. If it's a lead, it will be, that's the contact name. If this contact is associated with an account, is the company name. If you created an activity for a potential, then it'll be the potential name. So the related to is kind of a catch-all field. Whenever you see it, always add that field, and you can take it out. It's pretty easy. But a lot of times people will go, well, I don't know where to find the account name. It's usually the related to. So I'm going to put it in there. Past due. So that easy, I'm just going to say due date is till yesterday. Now, is that going to get it? What am I missing? It's not closed. So I need to have a status because that's going to show me not all past due, that's going to show me all past activities. You can build these things a little at a time. It's not a big deal. If I save it and I see that they're all open activities, it's not a problem. I can come back in and edit. But I already know right now I need to take status isn't completed and click Save. All right, so there's my past due activities. Now, you know how to do this. If I want to create a past due for each person, then all I have to do is clone this and say past due bill, and I just have to add another line. And activity owner is Bill. So without a lot of work, I can create now one for each person. And so I can keep track. But as a company manager, I can see what are my all due past due activities. It gives me a view of who's not completing things in the database. The other is the today function, and that's a little bit more complicated, so that's why I wanted to create that view. I'm going to clone the view just to get started because I like the columns. And I want to just call this today. So what would that look like? So it would be due date is today. So that's an easy one. And status isn't completed. That's easy. I'm going to take this one out of the mix for a few minutes. Now, that only covers tasks. It doesn't cover events. And I want to put them on the same view. So I have to add another criteria. What would that criteria look like? It would be something like, I'm going to go down to event. And I would say the from. Oh, sorry. Picked in the wrong area. I want to pick the from is today. At a base level, that'll get it. It's not going to work completely because maybe you've got calls. We need to add calls as well. But for right now, I'm just going to add that because that should get most of our activities for today. What did I do wrong? I know why. It's or. Okay, because it can't have a from and a due date. So instead of and, it's going to be or. A due date is today, and it's not closed, or the task says today. Now let's see what it looks like. Good. It's one of the things that you have. It's kind of difficult to get used to because you have a due date column. The date is in the due date column for tasks, and it's in the from column for events. So you can't just pick from one date field, but now I have a today. And now I can add a today. Now I can take that same view and create a view for each sales team if I want to. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so what are views used for, and why do I think they're so important? Everything is kind of interrelated in this. That's one of the great things about Zoho, is that let's say you create a view, I want to mass update stuff. So create a view where the criteria, sometimes I'd create views and I only use them for 30 minutes and I delete them. I'll create a view that is every place where something equals something. It doesn't make any difference. Because then I can select them all and then say mass update and give all of the fields updated all at once. And as soon as they're all updated, then what happens to the view? It goes to 0. Because whatever criteria I'd used before is no longer working. So that's how I know that all fields have been updated, and I can delete the view now. I don't need it anymore. You might use it for, this is my favorite one, and I don't know if you have played with this. When you search, most people are used to looking at search in that top right search box. But there is a tiny little looking glass right there on the top of every view that you have. And when you click it, it opens up into a little field search view. So for instance, one of the things that sometimes I might look for is, I'm from Houston, so I might want to look at all contacts in Houston. But if I type Houston in the top right because I want to know somebody's name, or let's say I want to know somebody's name is Houston, so then I wouldn't have searched in the mailing city, I would look in the name. So it allows you to narrow the search not just by module, by actual field. So it just requires that you have a view that has the field that you want to search on. But this is probably one of the more kind of hidden thing, but it's probably one of the more powerful things that you can do. Also, if you log into your CRM, and all free versions start out like this, when you log into your home screen, if you see this little thing in the upper right corner that says, don't show this again, please click on don't show this again. Because in back of that view is a dashboard. And you can create dashboards that give you a snapshot of different things. So remember, what I'm talking about is why create views. So look what I have on my front page. I have a Susan Today. So that view we just created, each person can add the Today field on their panel. I have a what are my open potentials. You can do whatever view you want to create in any module. That's one of the things that you can add to your home screen. Home screen is unique to each user. Each user can create their own. So if you teach them how to do views, they can modify their own home screens. Another thing that you use views for is campaigns. I'm a big advocate of campaigns. I think they're really great. But you don't want to sync all of your contacts to campaigns because not all my contacts have emails. They should, but I've had a list for a long time. So you want to be able to say, well, only sync certain kinds of contacts over. So it's a real handy if you know how to create it. You might use it for syncing to other apps. Views are also used for workflow. Workflows can be daunting to start because somebody will say, well, I want to email people in my database based on a certain criteria. But they create a workflow and they didn't create it right, and the fear is, what if it sends an email to everybody in my database and I only wanted to send it to specific people? So what I do is I say, look, see, when you're creating a workflow, it always starts, part of the first part of creating the workflow is rule criteria. So go build a view with the rule criteria, and that way you'll know, does this rule criteria work, and actually select the contacts I want. Once you've selected the contacts, then you're in good shape. Does that make sense? Also, reports. If you want to build reports, reports are based on criteria. So it's easy, again, you can start to build better reports if you understand criteria. All right, enough about views. The next thing has to do with built-in features. The third area is be sure there are some built-in features that are there. They're free. There's nothing that you have to do other than just kind of implement them. Take advantage of them because some of them are really great. One of them is send mail. Is when you send mail, have some templates. I have some clients that say, well, no, we never send anything templated. Oh, please. Everybody has some templated response. Maybe there is just a template that says, attached is the quote. But you want to say something nice. Attached is the quote. We'll be glad to talk with you about it. You have some standard verbiage that you're going to use with everything. It's not like when you select the template, you can make a change. You don't have to use just the template. You can modify it before you click send. But this is the kind of carrot thing that makes it a lot easier for your sales team to really work and get their work done faster and be more productive. Be sure that you tell them how to download, apps, although most people find the apps right away, and it's going to be like an amazing app in a couple of weeks. But be sure that your team members know how to do it. But there's like another one on the App Store. It's called Leads. I hope you know about it. There's two apps. One's called Leads and one is called Card Scanner. Sorry. The Card Scanner came first. The Leads came second. Leads is a much better one to download. It allows you to scan a business card. You can put in a note. You can put in a task. If you want to, you can take a picture. Sometimes it's kind of creepy. People don't like their pictures taken. But the picture goes back into CRM, which is actually really, really nice. It's like I've done it with a couple people here. Add some workflow. This is a more complicated workflow. It's like if you've got a quote, how are you going to follow up? Should you add it to a campaign? Blah, blah. But you could do simple workflow. It could be if it is closed won, change the status of the company to customer from prospect. It'd be very simple workflow. It doesn't have to be really fancy. I mean, Tejas showed you a lot of really fancy workflow, but you just think about what would make your sales team's lives easier, but also what would make your data cleaner. I find that there are two ways to do quotes. Sometimes people have a widget kind of quote. I'm going to sell 3 of these, 6 of these, 8 of these. But sometimes people have more of a word format, kind of real long, we'll do this, we'll do that, all this stuff. Whichever way you're doing it, it's not important. Make it easier for them. Either build a really good quote template, or figure out how to do a mail merge. I have a mail merge where I put in everything I would ever possibly do for a client, and then we delete the things we're not going to do for that one job. I mean, you can play with it. There are third-party add-ons that even get more complicated, but this is just a built-in. It's free. Just spend a little time, and it'll help your team get better. Set up reports. Again, even though the reports are not going to show anything at the beginning, that's that stick thing, but you can make it like a carrot if you need to. If they have to do a daily activity report, make it so that it's real easy for them to get the data in. And if you click on reports, there's this thing called Report Scheduler. And you can send a report of how many new notes were entered in the last 7 days to the sales manager. You could send it to the president of the company. The president of the company doesn't even have to have a Zoho email account because it allows you to send it to an email outside of the Zoho user IDs. So that's a really nice one. Even when you create reports, you can create charts. If you create a chart, when you look at creating a report, there's a chart button on it. Just click it and see what happens. You can create a chart. Once you've created charts on reports, you can add them to dashboards. I don't know if you've looked at the dashboard panel. There's all these like graphics and stuff. That's how they came. They came from the reports module where somebody said they clicked the create chart button, and that's how it gets there. And of course, the reports are actually pretty powerful. You really want to go to Advanced CRM Analytics, which is a paid feature, if you want to compare modules. Like I have somebody that said, I want to know for every potential that we wrote a quote for, what % changed, closed. So you're trying to compare a lot of things, and they're doing percentages. Anytime you're doing percentages or calculations, the built-in Zoho report writer won't do percentages and calculations, but it will do a lot of other things. It'll do sums and totals. So you might want to go to that one. But other than that, think about adding other apps. That was just the free stuff, well, except for the advanced analytics. That was the free stuff, but think about adding other apps. The first one that I think most people add is Zoho Campaigns. Some people say, well, I'm using Constant Contact or I'm using something else. The great advantage of the campaigns, it's an app. And let me talk about that too. One of the things that's a little difficult is sometimes Zoho uses the same word for an internal tab and an external app. Okay, so inside of CRM, there is a Campaigns tab. The Campaigns tab is only a place where you can say, I want to go to a trade show, and I think I might spend this much money, and I think we might get this much business out of it. It's just keeping track of how are you marketing your business. That's all it's keeping track of. So it's not to mass mail. That's not what it's for. You can have a limited number of mass. You can create a view and you can do what it does right there under Contact Tools, mass email. But there's a limit to how many emails that you can send out of your account in a given day. It has to do with how many users. There's some algorithm for how many users times so many things, so many emails per day. But if you integrate the Zoho Campaigns app, that's where you can send out mass emails to more than, let's say, a couple hundred or 1,000. And when you create a campaign, when you create a template and you send a template in Zoho Campaigns, it automatically creates a record in the Zoho CRM. And it will tell you how many were sent. And on each record of contact record, you can create a field so you can see who clicked, who opened, who updated. And on each record, I can see what they did. It's a really great feature and so it's similar to Constant Contact, but with other apps, you're not going to have that data coming back in to CRM so that you can see what's going on by each contact record. You probably want to look at Survey. Survey allows you to bring data back in based on responses. Support, if you have support issues, it's an excellent product for you to implement. Projects is cheap for what it is, but if you're doing a lot of heavy-duty projects with a lot of steps and you want to invite outside users in to participate and to see what their tasks are, or for the client to see it, it's very easy to do. There's Zoho Mail. Books, we implemented Books this year, which we got off of QuickBooks and we're using Zoho Books. I really like it a lot. There's some advantages. But you can look at all of the different things. I think you should definitely look at some of those options. Then train your team. That's probably my favorite thing. You need to be sure that you've got some training in place. Help them see when you're training what's in it for them. It helps show them all the things that you did, that you designed and built in for them. Focus on the goals, not the keystrokes. If you can focus on what is our objective here. I need you to fill out this field because we're doing reports or we're doing marketing based on this field. That's why it's really important for you to fill out the industry field, because we're doing industry-focused marketing. If they understand that, it's easier for them to fill it out. I kind of say teach the 5 things. Figure out before you train, what are the 5 things I really need them to know. That's kind of an arbitrary number. Maybe it's 6. I don't care. But figure that out, and that'll make your training go a lot better. Assign internal support. Pick somebody that really gets it and can help the team that is struggling, help the team members that are struggling figure out what they need to do. Create follow-up tips and schedule more than one training. Don't just do it one time. It looks really easy when you look at it the first time, but everybody goes back and they'll go, oh, how did she do that? Or how did we do that? I can't remember. So when I say keep follow-up documentation, do something that makes it easier, like either have little tips, do a newsletter. If you guys like, I'm a big documentation person. I like it. You're welcome to come up and grab some of these. These are what I call cheat sheets. They're just like double-sided cards that just say how to do basic things in Zoho CRM. You're welcome to come and grab them up here on the front table. Or if you want one, when you go back, you can go there and click Need Help, and you can click on the icon and you can get a PDF so that you can print them out for your team if you want to. So 6 keys, get a vision. You know, you're coming away from a Rolodex or an Excel file or whatever it is. Be sure you know exactly where you want to go. This was actually from last year. So he said, refine, reimagine, reinvent. Keep in mind a user-friendly design. Implement the built-in features for free. And keep in mind that it also let them know, I know it's different, but you can do it. It's just a little bit different. Change is hard. We went first. We want you to help figure out, because the whole reason that you do all this, that you get user adoption and you have a really good, clean database, because that eventually is what you really want out of this. That's your biggest asset.